Welcome to video 2. Video 2 talks all about progressive presidents. So let's talk about these gentlemen and the great work that they did. The first person I want to talk about is President William McKinley. Although our conversation is going to be pretty short because in 1901, guess what? He gets assassinated. He's now off the scene. He is replaced by his vice president. We all call him Teddy, TR, Theodore Roosevelt. Takes office. Very young man to do so. He's about 23 years old. I can remember when I was 23. I wasn't a presidential candidate, though. I don't know. Anyway, life goes on. He supported, TR did, progressive goals, and he became known as the Trust Buster. He's going to be one of those people who come along and break up these big monopolies and trust. Keep in mind, a monopoly is when someone has the complete control of a good, service, or industry. A trust is when these companies have come together to consolidate resources and keep all of the money under their control. Trust Buster. Teddy Roosevelt comes along and says, hey, that's not good for the consumer. I'm going to be the do-gooder here. I'm going to break these things up. 1904, he proposes something called the Square Deal. What does he mean by that? He says, I'm going to make certain that the people of America get a square deal. In other words, we're going to be fair. We're going to be equitable. We're going to give people what they deserve. Hey, that must have been pretty impressive because it actually helps him become elected to his own presidential term in 1904. Some of the things that came out of the square deal include the following. Might want to write this down. Remember, you can press the pause button. Number one, he says we need to conserve natural resources. 2, he put money into forming national parks. 3, after reading the book The Jungle, he also exposes unhealthy conditions in the meatpacking industry by putting this report out to all American citizens. Hey, guess what's really going into your food? In 1908, Roosevelt backed President Taft. He didn't want to run for another term. He thought, hey, Taft can get the job done. Taft was a cautious guy. He broke up more trust than Roosevelt ever did. He was one of those people who supported a graduated income tax. He was also another one of those people who said people only need to work an 8-hour workday. He also established a federal office to control child labor. But here's something that he didn't do so well. He raised tariffs. Tariffs are another word for taxes on goods and services coming in and going out of the country. Roosevelt was one of those who said, I'm all about power. Taft was one of those who was all about caution. So ultimately, the two wound up clashing. So here we have Roosevelt going, you know what, Taft, maybe you're not as good as I thought you were going to be with this whole presidential thing, so I'm going to run against you. In 1912, there was another election. Taft and Roosevelt both wanted the presidency. Taft, however, managed to maintain the Republican nomination. So in order for Roosevelt to run against him, he now has to come up with another way to get his name on the ballot. So he creates a new party, and they call themselves the Progressives because they're all about being progressive and being for the people. The Democratic nominee was Woodrow Wilson. So these three individuals, Taft, Roosevelt, and Wilson, are all vying for the presidency in 1912. Roosevelt's Progressive Party also became known as the Bull Moose Party because he was mean as a bull, but he was willing to do whatever was necessary in order to go forward. Wilson winds up winning the election because guess what? Republicans can't determine if they want Taft, which would mean stick with your party, or if they want Roosevelt, which means go with the progressives. So the split ticket helps the Democrats to win the 1912 election. So Wilson now becomes the new president. He was also considered to be progressive in his ideals, though, so that kind of works out for the people. Some of the things that you need to know about President Wilson, he comes along and says, I'm going to give America a new freedom. In other words, I'm going to restore competition in business. Competition is good for consumers because if people have to compete for pricing, then it means that someone might get a better deal for the goods and services that they desire. Wilson also comes along in 1914 and establishes the FTC. That's the Federal Trade Commission. Guess what they do? Sounds just about, it is just how it sounds. They're going to regulate trade. They're going to make sure products and goods and services are fair and that the people get what the people deserve. In 1913, he had also come along and established the Federal Reserve Act. So a lot of progressive things come out of this progressive presidential period. Big names you need to know: Teddy Roosevelt, Taft, Woodrow Wilson. Progressive presidents. Be able to tell me something that made them progressive. Why are they called progressive president? Hit that rewind button if you need to. Take good notes. I want to see a great summary.